Brazil will stop, they chanted late into the night. These are the supporters of former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro. They say they'll shut down the country to defend their leader's innocence after he was placed under house arrest. The latest salvo in a case that's opening up a trade war with the US.
We will not be silent in the face of everything that is happening. Brazil has awakened and we are in the streets again. We are fighting for freedom. Before it was one for all, now we are all for one.
It all began in December 2022 when the one-time leader was defeated at the ballot box by the current president, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. Bolsonaro is now on trial, accused of allegedly masterminding a coup to remain in office by trying to overthrow him. The next month, on January 8th, supporters of Bolsonaro stormed government buildings just a week after Lula was sworn in, living up to his nickname, Trump of the Tropics. Last week, his old ally, who has long called these charges a witch hunt, slapped 50% tariffs on Brazil and financial sanctions against the Supreme Court Judge Alexandre de Moraes, who is presiding over the trial. At rallies on Sunday, the crowd were grateful Trump was prepared to retaliate over the prosecution of his buddy. Bolsonaro's son, Flavio, seen here at one rally on Sunday, had spent months lobbying US officials on his father's behalf. He held up a video call with Bolsonaro, who addressed supporters, thanking them for standing under the hot sun, saying it was for our freedom.
My beloved Rio de Janeiro, I want to thank everyone who came here today and stayed under the sun until this moment. I know it's tiring, but to repay you, you'll hear a good afternoon from the best president in the history of this Brazil, who is on the line with me now. Good afternoon, Dad. Copacabana is listening.
The video was posted on his social media, but later deleted. But not before it was picked up by the authorities. They accused Bolsonaro of breaking legal restrictions that stop him using social media. They were put in place after he was accused of lobbying Trump online to interfere in his plight. And in a sign, Judge Moraes won't be bowing to US pressure. He issued the court order Monday night. Which brings us back here, when Bolsonaro's supporters took to the streets once again in protest. The leader can no longer leave his home and is also banned from using a mobile phone or receiving visitors. Trump may come to his aid once again, escalating the already strained relationship between Brazil and the US. Outside the gates of Bolsonaro's home, for anyone who thought his political future was dead, the streets are playing a different tune. I just wanted to start by asking you about the tariffs and the sanctions. How big of an impact will these tariffs, which are due to come into effect, I believe, in October, have on both Brazil and the US?
Yeah, it will be a huge impact for Brazilian economy. US is still one of the most important economic partners and trade partners for Brazil. And that was a big surprise, the amount of tariffs that had been imposed to Brazil. Even though the important parts, let's say like that, especially agribusiness, orange juice, avionics, and other important export products from Brazil are put out of the tariff. So for certain parts of the economic landscape in Brazil, the impact will be not so big. But in general, the impact is huge, and not only the economic impact, but also the political impact.
And these tariffs, Trump is saying that they will level the playing field, but they're very much being seen as political.
In the announcement of the tariffs, he made very clear that this number, this 50%, was due to the fact that Brazilian government and specifically the Brazilian Supreme Court is prosecuting Bolsonaro. So it is definitely a political act more than economic one, indeed.
What else does Trump have available to him to put pressure on Brazil over the case of Jair Bolsonaro?
Well, he has used already the Machinsky law to reduce the possibility of the judge of Supreme Court, Moraes, to have business and economic development or actions in US. He can escalate that. Many judges of the Supreme Court are also suspended to go to US. Their visas has been suspended. They are not allowed to travel to US. So we can see that this escalation can continue in several other measures. So yesterday, the Moraes, the judge of the Supreme Court, he put former President Bolsonaro in home arrest. And this is causing already preoccupations and worries what will be the next move of Trump. He declared that he condemned that yesterday, Trump, and let's see if that will be translated in any form or sort of action against Brazil.
And you mentioned there Moraes, who's the Supreme Court judge who's presiding over this case. A lot of the US anger seems to be against this judge, and it's not the first time that he has refused to bow to US pressure.
There is a traumatic experience in Brazil with trials with presidents, and in this case in particular, Moraes is quite keen to be strict with that because it's a result of a tentative coup that happened in Brazil just after the election of Lula in 8 January 2 years ago, 2022. So what we are seeing now, 2023. What we're seeing now, it's Moraes and the Supreme Court in general being quite strict and quite rigorous in terms of preventing similar situations to happen in the future. And that's putting Moraes in particular on the spot, both nationally. He gets quite a lot of anger from many parts of the Brazilian population, particularly those supporters of Bolsonaro, many politicians as well, but also due to this international campaign, and particularly this campaign in US, led by the son of Jair Bolsonaro. Moraes is let's say, receiving the fire from US because of his actions.
What do Brazilians think about him and about the case in general, especially now that there's going to be potentially major economic repercussions because of it?
Surveys and polls that have been conducted by companies and press in Brazil are showing almost 50-50 support to the process that's being conducted by the Supreme Court, and 50% non-support or I would say condemnation of what Moraes and the Supreme Court is doing. So the division is quite evident in the country. It's difficult to really have a thermometer of how the country in general are perceiving and responding to that. Next year we have general elections again in Brazil. We may have Lula running again for president. Bolsonaro cannot run, but we don't know who he will actually support on his behalf. But I think that election will be probably the final thermometer or the final decision of how the Brazilian population will position itself towards the situation that we are living now.
And what is this case doing to US and Brazilian relations? How much lower can the relationship sink at this point?
It is affecting very, very much. Since I started to be an academic, a scholar studying Brazil, or even being curious about Brazil international relations, I think we never saw such a lower level of international relation between Brazil and US as we are seeing now.
So where do you see this going now? I mean, this case has only been going for a couple of months. Where do you predict this will, the country?
It's very difficult to predict what will be the next actions of President Trump, not only regarding Brazil, but regarding the world in general. All this pressure of US can actually have a side effect here. And instead of bringing Brazil more to the side of US, actually pushing it more against or more far from a US international perspective. China 25 years ago was not even among the 10 most important trade partners of the country, and today is the first one. We have BRICS as a multilateral agreement of countries that is becoming more strong with other countries joining it, and with the potential to really be a sort of a nucleum of counterpoint to what is US position globally speaking.
So this case of a former president could have the potential to realign global politics.
What is important to understand here that all the countries, and especially big countries, big economically speaking, like Brazil is, and many other big economies, they will be not passively just waiting to what is the US decision in terms of trade, tariffs, etc. They will start also to talk to each other. They will also start to find alternatives and solutions to not damage their economy and their internal structure because of this US pressure.
Thank you very much, Dr. Carvalho, for joining us.